I saw a lot of games at Summer Game Fest I'm going to be talking about soon, but for me, the biggest thing was what Capcom had to show. Specifically, I got to see Resident Evil and Onimusha Way of the Sword. I'll talk about Onimusha Way of the Sword in another video. I actually found it to be even cooler than the trailers suggested, but the biggest thing was Resident Evil Requiem. Of course, I was going to make a whole video on this because I love Resident Evil. If some of you are new here, I've been playing Resident Evil since the original. It was like one of my first big things as a kid, like Metal Gear Solid. I was absolutely obsessed with. So here we are, a million years later, and at the Jeff Keighley live stream event thing, Resident Evil Requiem was revealed with a big, flashy, scary trailer that left a lot of questions more than anything. This is a game that had been rumored, leaked, all these like things thrown out there for years and years now, and what we got was something still very unexpected. At Summer Game Fest, behind the scenes, I was actually able to see raw, straight up gameplay, so I'll be able to talk about that a little bit, and just generally this whole thing, because I'm pretty excited. I'm definitely have like a wishy-washy relationship with the newer Resident Evil games. As an annoying old school fan, I just want Chris Redfield or Jill to always just show up and save the day, right? But they've been doing things differently, and it seems like Requiem is continuing that, but in a way that I think might be a bit more of a compromise with older fans, because as much as the modern, like, extremely horror-focused Resident Evil games from 7 and Village have centered around new characters, here, with you assumingly playing as Grace Ashcroft, that to me feels a lot like an olive branch, right? Because it's a completely new character, but it is the character who is the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft from Resident Evil Outbreak, which is something I didn't see coming. I was never like a ride or die crazy Outbreak person. I know a lot of people that are, but still, I don't know. I just think this is nice. But the trailer itself, when it showed Raccoon City and you see the crater in the middle. So like we were all like watching the trailer trying to guess what it was. It felt like Resident Evil from the start because it just had that RE engine look to it. And then you hear Ashcroft and then it all comes together. As soon as I saw that crater, I was like, that's Raccoon City. Holy shit. Unfortunately, the gameplay I got to see, I did not see Raccoon City in it. What I did get to see was an extended sequence where Grace wakes up essentially strapped to a chair or strapped to a bed upside down with her blood being drained. Then there's this long drawn out, very like horror movie-esque sequence of her trying to break free, take the IV out, and then set out in, to me, what felt very much like some of the scarier moments from Resident Evil 7 or 8. Specifically like in 7 when you're in the boat, like just like pure darkness, minimal light, walking down hallways, that type of horror first-person experience. She's walking through this like haunted kind of like a hospital rehab type center, and it's really creepy. It's all the stuff you expect, and it's very much what you expect. Like you walk up, you got to open this. Oh, you need a fuse. Where do you go get the fuse? You wander around looking for the fuse. You find a key to unlock a door, inventory, all that stuff. Pretty standard Resident Evil fare at this point. A couple of things that stood out to me was the fact that there are light switches is really, really cool. So there are multiple points where you would come into a room, you'd open a door, and then look in the room and it's pitch black. And all you can see is a little light that is where the glowing light switch is. So there's this kind of new added horror element of you creeping in the darkness over to a light switch and then clipping the light switch on and hoping that what you see isn't horrific. Like that it's a really effective thing that I just didn't really, I was like, oh, that's a good idea. That's cool. There were multiple points where she would flick on the light and, see something that was just totally mundane, like a chair or something like that. But at first you're like, oh, what is that? Oh, okay. It's just a chair with some stuff on it, just good use of horror. I don't know. Oh, one thing I did like to see in action was a lighter, which works really good with like this whole emphasis on darkness, like really, really good use of darkness. The darkness actually feels pitch black here, but Grace at a point picks up a lighter and can use it as an equipped item. You know, lighters aren't a big, like they've been in Resident Evil forever, but only in certain games used as something you can walk around with, like Code Veronica, specifically in the beginning of that game, you get a lighter and it's awesome. Here, this lighter is used like to full effect and it's really great. It doesn't give off a ton of light, but it's like just enough when you're desperate. And, you know, her flicking it open and flicking it shut had a good loud like tactical clank to it, you know? Just a good, effective little thing. The other thing is, of course, it's a Resident Evil game, right? So there's got to be a pursuer. And what we got to see is a creature stomping around and pursuing Grace that is kind of, I've been calling her Big Lisa. If you know Lisa from Resident Evil 1 Remake, you know, the chains and stuff. Essentially a big version of that, but with a big head. So this thing was tall. A tall, lanky, grotesque creature in like a raggedy house coat, like dress type thing. And a big head that to me kind of looked like a zombie Yoko Taro. Like if that, you know, like with like these creepy teeth and weird eyes and its head hitting the ceiling. So it's got this posture of like, you know, like the ceiling is right there and it's kind of like knocking through lights and stuff like that. Really, really effective, very scary, very imposing because in first person, you're looking up at it, you're like, damn, that thing is big. It could grab her and chomp her like that, you know? But what I found interesting was that she was a little bit more predictable. She wasn't just like a Mr. X stomping around. She kind of had a thing where she would just end up appearing. And I think maybe it's like she was like, you know, climbing through the walls or something like that. I don't know, just good shit. But again, pretty standard Resident Evil stuff in a lot of ways, right? What surprised me the most with this demo is when the person playing the demo, like I was watching on screen, like when they got to a certain point, they paused the game, cycled through the menus to the settings, went down and switched first person view to third person view, and then bam, back out the menu, game is in third person, and it's like a Resident Evil 2 or 3 remake style gameplay, or Resident Evil 4. That to me was very cool, right? That's something that you could have seen coming, like with what they did with Resident Evil Village, with adding that mode, the third person mode with Gold Edition. And interestingly enough, in the menu, it said first person recommended, right? So it was recommending it for either the game or, in my opinion, that specific scene, because that was a very tight, orchestrated, very directed, deliberate scene, right? It felt very much like a House Beneviento scene from Resident Evil Village, right? I think those types of scenes, horror-wise, just work and are more effective in first person. But with it offering a third-person mode, again, great compromise for me, as someone who loves and appreciates the modern first-person Resident Evils, but really, I'm in it for, like, I want to be a person walking around, creeping around, doing Resident Evil stuff, you know? So to have that, it's interesting, but it also, to me, just suggests that there is a lot more to this game. There are tons of fan theories out there. I'm going to spare you, like, a lot of those, but, like, my high-level thought is that the whole Raccoon City thing, the fact that they showed so much of that, the fact that they showed the Raccoon City Police Department, extremely cool. That seems to me like that's going to be a big thing of the game. Like, you're going to be going there. The trailer and, like, the way a lot of the things went down, a lot of, like, the way they showed the sequences, it all felt very, like, contained to just the gameplay that I saw, other than Raccoon City and hearing all these other voices. So, long story short, I just feel like there's a lot more to this game. And that's kind of putting the clues in my brain together, right? The fact that this sequence felt very small, very self-contained. The fact that rumors forever have been flying around that we're going to be playing as like Jill or Leon or something like that, to the fact that there is also a first and third person mode. It just leads me to having this like feeling, this gut feeling that there is more to this game than meets the eye. It is not necessarily just Resident Evil 9. It's another first-person horror scary adventure where you play as some random person. You know, the fact that there are breadcrumbs to stuff in the general bigger lore seems like more than they've done in the past with like 7 and 8 and everything else I mentioned. I just think there's a bit more to this one. Also, side note, just going back to the first-person, third-person thing, it's interesting that you have to switch it in a menu. Maybe it was just for the demo presentation. Maybe it's because the game is a work in progress. You know, like I didn't see like final gameplay or anything like that. But I wonder why it's not swappable on the fly in the moment. I think, again, it comes down to deliberate choices. And what I think is that there are going to be certain periods of the game where you play it like a House Beneviento. It is very orchestrated, directed, and scary. And then there are other parts of the game where it's playing like a Resident Evil. You're running around in third person, you're shooting stuff. That's just how I feel. So again, it's like my preview of like what I have seen of the game, but also just like my reaction to the trailer and the news and everything like that. So am I setting up big expectations for myself? No, like if it doesn't turn out to be like this, if the whole game is just this like Grace Ashcroft creeping down scary hallways, fine. So be it. Like it is what it is. But I'd like the game to have a bit more, and I can't help but just feel like there's a little bit more to it. Either way, though, I think the sequence I did see was cool. It was very scary. She actually tends to move a little bit slower. She felt like a slower moving character. Maybe it's because she was just bleeding out in the current scene, in the previous scene, like when you first see her. But very slow, very deliberate, and a lot of voiceover and dialogue work of her just breathing and sounding terrified. You know, you'd turn a corner and go into a darker section, and you'd hear her like really like that shivery breathing even more. Did it get a little bit annoying after a while, and it will get annoying in the game? Maybe, but I thought it was cool, and it was effective for certain sequences. So at the very least, they still got the horror thing figured out. Because again, 7 and 8 really are more than Resident Evil games and like lore games that I want. They are celebrations of horror. They are horror sickos, horror enthusiasts trying to create fun video game horror scenarios. And it just happens to have the Resident Evil brand. Of course, there's more to it than that. But again, this game, to me, at least from the start, is feeling like a good convergence of what they've been building with 2, 3, and 4 remake and 7 and Village. But, you know, the rest remains to be seen. Is it going to be open world, post-apocalyptic, you know, Raccoon City? I've seen some people say that. I don't know for sure, but either way, I'm just excited to see what they're cooking with this one. I'm intrigued. I can't help but be intrigued. I love these things. Also, we don't have to wait too long, at least. It's pretty cool that they announced the game for the first time and did give us a release date. Of course, games get delayed all the time, but like I like when they do stuff like this. They're like, here it is, it's coming out, and it's coming out soon-ish. It's releasing February 2026 as of right now, and that to me could just be a perfect spooky wintertime game. But that's where I'm at with this one. I just wanted to talk about Resident Evil, and again, so many more questions, like the Resident Evil Raccoon City thing, the creepy figures shown from the back in the trailer. Who are some of the people in the voiceovers? Like, there's lots of speculation of like who's who, what's going on. This monster I saw in the gameplay demo, what's their deal? Who are they working for? Who were they made by? Stuff like that. Let's talk anything Resident Evil 9 down in the comments. I want to hear from you. I'd love to hear your fan theories. Hopefully my impressions of the gameplay I got to see running gave you a little bit more context, but either way, I'm looking forward. I just had to do a whole video on this. I have another video coming where I'm talking about Onimusha, Crimson Desert, Ninja Guy, like a bunch of stuff, right? So keep your eyes peeled for that. But for now, thank you for watching. If you like what I'm trying to do here, I'm just talking about stuff I love, stuff I find interesting. Clicking the like button does legitimately help, for real. But that's it. I'm Jake Baldino. Thanks for watching. Subscribe because video games. Pizza's on me. Resident Evil. No, can't do it.